Dr. Aisha Williams adjusted the IV drip for the third time in 10 minutes, her movements precise, economical, practiced. Room 218 was quiet, except for the steady beep of monitors and the soft breathing of Mr. Johnson recovering from appendix surgery. Nurse Williams, Dr. Chen's voice cut through the peace like a scalpel. Patient in Trauma Bay 1, vehicle collision. Aisha nodded, secured the IV, and headed toward trauma. But the moment she stepped into the hallway, she knew it wasn't just a vehicle collision. Too much military presence moving too quickly. Too many serious faces, too much controlled urgency that spoke of classified operations and national security. She pushed through the trauma bay doors and froze. Sergeant Marcus Hayes lay on the gurney, blood seeping through field dressings, his face pale but his eyes alert. Army Special Forces. She recognized the tactical gear, the bearing, the way he assessed threats even while losing blood. But more than that, she recognized him. "Aisha," he whispered when he saw her, relief flooding his features. "Thank God you're here, Doctor." Dr. Chen looked up from his preliminary examination, irritated. "Nurse Williams, I need you to prep for emergency surgery. This patient has multiple penetrating wounds, possible internal bleeding." "Doctor." Hayes' voice was weak but insistent. "I need Dr. Williams to handle this." Chen paused, confused. "I'm sorry. There's no Dr. Williams here. This is Nurse Williams, and I assure you I'm perfectly qualified." "Get Dr. Aisha Williams," Hayes repeated, his eyes locked on Aisha's face. "She's the only one who can save me." Aisha's blood ran cold. Her past, carefully buried, was about to surface. Dr. Chen straightened, his expression shifting from confusion to condescension. "Sergeant Hayes, you've lost significant blood. You're confused. This is Nurse Williams, an excellent nurse, but she's not qualified to perform surgery. I am Dr. Chen, Chief of Trauma Surgery, and I will be handling your case." Hayes's hand shot out, gripping Chen's wrist with surprising strength. "You don't understand. I need Dr. Aisha Williams. She saved my life before. There is no Dr. Williams." Chen pulled his hand free, frustrated. "Sir, you're delirious from blood loss. Nurse Williams, please sedate the patient so we can proceed." "I don't need sedation," Hayes said, his eyes still on Aisha. "I need the surgeon who pulled shrapnel out of my chest in Somalia. I need the doctor who kept my entire unit alive under fire. I need Dr. Aisha Williams." Aisha felt the room's attention shift to her. The other nurses, the residents, even Chen were staring. "Sergeant Hayes," she said quietly, "you need surgery immediately. Dr. Chen is highly qualified." "No." Hayes's voice carried command authority despite his weakness. "Aisha, I know why you're here. I know what happened in Mogadishu, but right now, I need you to be who you really are, not who you're pretending to be." Chen looked between them, his medical arrogance warring with growing confusion. What is he talking about? Aisha felt the weight of 3 years of careful deception threatening to crumble. She'd worked so hard to become invisible, to be just another nurse, to bury Dr. Aisha Williams, along with the guilt and trauma of that last mission. But Hayes was dying. She could see it in his vitals, in the way his blood pressure was dropping, in the subtle signs that civilian doctors might miss, but that she recognized from hundreds of battlefield triage decisions. "Dr. Chen," she said carefully, "Sergeant Hayes requires immediate surgery. His injuries are more complex than they appear. How could you possibly know that? You're a nurse." Aisha looked at Hayes, saw the plea in his eyes, the trust that said, "I know who you are. I need who you are." "Because," she said quietly, "those aren't just penetrating wounds. That's fragmentation pattern from an IED. And if I'm right, he has metal fragments near his heart that will kill him if they shift during standard surgical procedures." Chen stared at her. "You can't possibly diagnose." "Nurse Williams is right," Hayes said weakly. "IED in Kabul 3 weeks ago. Fragments are still there. Too dangerous to remove in the field." His eyes found Aisha's. "That's why I need the best combat surgeon the Army ever had." The room went silent. Chen looked at Aisha as if seeing her for the first time. Combat surgeon. Aisha closed her eyes. 3 years of hiding about to end because a soldier she'd saved couldn't let her hide anymore. When she opened them, Hayes was coding. He's flatlining. The resident's voice cut through everything else. Aisha moved before thinking, her hands finding Hayes's pulse points, her mind switching into combat mode she'd tried to suppress for 3 years. "Start compressions," she ordered, then caught herself. "Dr. Chen, just do it." Chen snapped, recognizing skill when he saw it. Aisha's hands moved with precision that made the nurses step back. These weren't the compressions of someone who'd learned CPR in basic training. These were the compressions of someone who'd done this under fire, with explosions overhead, with no backup and no margin for error. 2 milligrams epinephrine, she said, then realized she was giving orders instead of following them. "I mean, Dr. Chen, should we continue?" Chen said, his voice tight. He was watching her hands, her technique, the way she positioned Hayes's head for optimal airway. "How do you know to do that?" The monitor beeped. Hayes's heart rhythm returned. "Because I've done this before," Aisha said quietly. "Many times." Chen studied her face. "Nurse Williams, I need to ask you directly. What is your medical background?" Before Aisha could answer, Hayes's eyes fluttered open. He gripped her wrist. "Doc," he whispered, using the title that 3 years of working as a nurse hadn't erased from his memory. "The fragments. They've shifted. I can feel them." Aisha checked the monitors, saw the subtle changes that confirmed her worst fear. The metal fragments were moving toward his heart, minutes, maybe less, before they punctured something vital. "Dr. Chen," she said urgently, "he needs immediate surgery now. I'm prepping OR3. "No." Aisha's voice carried an authority that made everyone freeze. "The fragments are shifting. Standard surgical positioning will kill him. He needs to remain exactly at this angle with these precise support positions, or the metal will puncture his heart." "How can you possibly know that?" "Because I've seen this exact injury pattern 19 times in Somalia, in Iraq, in places you've never been and hope you never have to go." Aisha looked at Hayes, saw him fading fast. "Dr. Chen, I'm asking you to trust me. Let me assist in this surgery. Let me position him correctly. Let me help save his life. You're a nurse." "She's Dr. Aisha Williams," Hayes gasped, his voice barely audible. "Army Special Forces combat surgeon, saved 51 lives in active combat zones. Best trauma surgeon the military ever produced." His eyes found Chen. "And right now she's the only person in this hospital who can keep me alive." Chen stared at Aisha. "Is that true?" Aisha met his gaze. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of guilt, 3 years of trying to forget who she used to be. But Hayes was dying, and she was still Dr. Aisha Williams, whether she wanted to be or not. "Yes," she said quietly. "It's true." The OR prep room buzzed with tension as Aisha scrubbed beside Dr. Chen. Her hands moved with muscle memory. The ritual of surgical preparation as familiar as breathing despite 3 years away from operating tables. "Dr. Williams," Chen said carefully, "I need to understand what I'm dealing with here. You've been working as a nurse in my hospital for 2 years. Your credentials show nursing school, not medical school." "Deep cover medical background check would show nursing credentials," Aisha said, not looking up. "The rest is classified." "Classified by who?" "The United States Army, the Department of Defense. People with more clearance than either of us want to deal with." She finished scrubbing, turned to face him. "Dr. Chen, I understand your confusion. I understand your anger. But right now, Sergeant Hayes has minutes before those fragments shift enough to kill him. We can discuss my credentials later." Chen studied her. "Those positioning requirements you mentioned, the specific angle, the support points, fragment pattern from Eastern European-made IED, common in Middle Eastern theater. Metal pieces are jagged, designed to cause maximum internal damage. Standard surgical positioning would create pressure that drives them deeper." Aisha's voice was clinical, professional. "I've removed these fragments 51 times, lost patients 3 times, all because we couldn't maintain proper positioning under field conditions. Field conditions, combat zones, forward operating bases, places where you operate in a tent with mortars landing outside, and no backup if things go wrong." Aisha met his eyes. "Dr. Chen, I'm not trying to usurp your authority. I'm trying to save a patient's life using knowledge I wish I didn't have." Chen was quiet for a moment. "Then, what do you need?" "Complete surgical control. This isn't a team operation. It's a delicate extraction that requires absolute precision. One wrong move, one tremor, 1 second of uncertainty, and he dies. Aisha paused. I know that's not how civilian hospitals work. I know you're the chief surgeon, but this isn't civilian medicine. This is combat trauma, and I'm asking you to trust me to handle it. Through the OR window, they could see Hayes being prepped, his vitals declining steadily. If I let you lead this surgery, Chen said slowly, and something goes wrong. If he dies, both our careers are over. If you don't let me lead this surgery, he dies anyway. At least this way he has a chance. Chen looked at Hayes at the monitors showing a man running out of time at Aisha's steady hands and calm confidence. What's your success rate with this type of extraction? 94% under combat conditions. Should be higher in a controlled OR environment. And if you're wrong, if those aren't the fragments you think they are. Aisha was quiet for a moment. Then I'm wrong and a good man dies. And I live with that for the rest of my life, just like I live with the 3 I couldn't save. Chen saw something in her eyes. The weight of command decisions, the burden of lives saved and lost, the cost of being responsible for impossible choices under impossible conditions. Dr. Williams, he said formally, I'm asking you to take lead on this surgery. I'll assist. Aisha nodded. Thank you. They entered the OR where Hayes lay unconscious, his life measured in heartbeats and declining vital signs. Scalpel, Aisha said, her voice steady. For the first time in 3 years, Dr. Aisha Williams was exactly where she belonged, even if she'd spent 3 years trying to convince herself otherwise. The moment the scalpel touched Hayes' skin, everything else faded away. The OR, the watching nurses, Dr. Chen's uncertainty, Aisha's guilt about the past. All of it disappeared, leaving only surgeon and patient, and the mission to save a life. Retractor, Aisha said, her voice calm. Small Richardson. Her hands moved with precision that made the surgical team pause. This wasn't the technique of someone returning to surgery after years away. This was mastery honed by experience most civilian doctors never faced. Jesus, one of the residents whispered. Look at that incision. Perfect, clean, minimal tissue damage. The kind of surgical approach that spoke of hundreds of operations performed under the worst possible conditions. Suction, Aisha continued, exposing the surgical field. There, do you see it? Chen leaned closer, following her gaze. The metal fragments, 3 pieces, 1 near the heart wall, 2 along the intercostal space. But look at the positioning. Aisha's voice took on a teaching tone. They're not random. The blast pattern drove them in sequence, the largest piece first, the smaller ones following the pressure wave, which means if we remove them in the wrong order, we'll destabilize the whole pattern. The remaining fragments will shift, and he'll bleed out before we can control it. Dr. Chen stared at the surgical field. I've never seen anything like this. Pray you never have to again. Aisha's hands moved to the first fragment, the smallest one, tucked against a rib. This one first. It's acting as a pressure point for the others. Remove it carefully, and the larger pieces will settle into stable positions. She worked with movements that seemed almost casual, but required absolute precision. The fragment came free without disturbing surrounding tissue. Remarkable, Chen breathed. How did you know? Experience. Too much experience. Aisha moved to the second fragment. This one's trickier. It's resting against the lung lining. If it shifts wrong, he'll have a pneumothorax and we'll lose him. The room held its breath as she worked. This fragment was larger, irregularly shaped, designed to cause maximum damage, but Aisha's hands never wavered. Got it. She placed the fragment in the specimen tray. Now the big one. The largest fragment sat near Hayes' heart, close enough that each heartbeat moved it slightly, close enough that one wrong move would puncture the cardiac wall. Dr. Williams, Chen said quietly, are you sure about this approach? Aisha paused, looked at the monitors at Hayes' vitals holding steady but weak. I've done this exact extraction 31 times, lost 1 patient because we didn't have proper lighting, another because mortar fire forced us to rush. She met Chen's eyes. In a controlled OR with proper equipment and no one shooting at us, this should work. Should or will, Aisha corrected herself. This will work. She positioned her instruments, found the exact angle needed to extract the fragment without disturbing the surrounding tissue. Her hands moved with the confidence of someone who'd made impossible decisions and lived with the consequences. The fragment slid free. Hayes's vitals strengthened immediately. Color returned to his face. The monitor showed a heart rhythm that was strong, steady, normal. Unbelievable, Chen said. I've never seen surgical precision like that. Aisha began closing. Her sutures perfect, her technique flawless. You've never worked combat medicine, Dr. Chen. When you have 30 seconds to save a life or watch a soldier die, you learn efficiency. Is that why you left the military? Aisha's hands paused for just a moment. I left because sometimes even when you do everything right, people still die. And sometimes the weight of saving everyone you can doesn't balance out the weight of losing the ones you can't. She finished closing. Hayes's vitals were strong, stable, better than they'd been since he arrived. Surgery complete, Aisha announced. Patient should recover fully. She stepped back from the table and suddenly she wasn't Dr. Aisha Williams anymore. She was just Nurse Williams, who'd somehow performed a miracle she wasn't supposed to be capable of. Chen looked at her with something like awe. That was extraordinary. Your technique, your knowledge, yours was a one-time situation, Aisha interrupted. Sergeant Hayes needed help I was qualified to provide. That's all. But your skills are in the past. Aisha began cleaning up, her movements automatic. I'm a nurse now, Dr. Chen. This was an exception. Chen watched her, understanding dawning on his face. You're not coming back to surgery, are you? Even after this. Aisha met his eyes, and he saw the pain there, the guilt, the weight of decisions that had cost lives despite her best efforts. Some doors, Dr. Chen, close for good reasons, even when opening them might save lives. She left the OR, leaving Chen to process what he'd witnessed. The most skilled surgery he'd ever seen, performed by a woman who was determined to walk away from it again. But as Aisha headed back to her nursing station, she didn't know that Sergeant Hayes was already awake, already asking for her, already planning to make sure she understood that some doors weren't meant to stay closed, especially when opening them could save so many more lives. Aisha was checking medications when Dr. Chen found her 30 minutes later. His expression was complicated. Confusion, respect, and something that looked like determination. Nurse Williams, he said, then corrected himself. Dr. Williams, we need to talk. There's nothing to discuss, Aisha said without looking up. Sergeant Hayes is stable. Surgery was successful. Case closed. Case closed. Chen stepped closer. Aisha, what I witnessed in that OR, that wasn't just good surgery. That was mastery. The kind of skill that takes decades to develop. It took 4 years of combat medicine and 51 emergency extractions under fire. Aisha finally looked at him. And it cost more than you'll ever understand. Then help me understand. Why are you working as a nurse when you're clearly one of the most skilled surgeons I've ever seen? Aisha was quiet for a moment. Because surgery means making life and death decisions, and I got tired of making the wrong ones. Wrong ones. Mogadishu 3 years ago. Mass casualty event. IED hit a marketplace, 52 people injured, 15 children. I had to choose who to save first, who to save second, who to she stopped. 3 people died while I was saving others. 3 people who might have lived if I'd made different choices. Chen sat heavily. Aisha, that's triage. It's impossible choices under impossible conditions. You saved lives. I lost lives too. And I decided I was done playing God. Aisha resumed her medication check. Nursing is different. I help, I support, I care for patients, but I don't make the choices that determine who lives and who dies. But you just did. With Hayes. That was different. How? Aisha's hands stilled. Because he asked for me specifically. Because I was the only one who could help him. Because she trailed off. Because you're still Dr. Aisha Williams, Chen finished, whether you want to be or not. Before Aisha could respond, her phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. Dr. Williams. This is Sergeant Hayes. Thank you for saving my life again. We need to talk. There's something you need to know about Mogadishu, something that changes everything. Aisha stared at the message. Mogadishu, the mission that ended her surgical career. the people she couldn't save. "What is it?" Chen asked. "My past," Aisha said quietly. "Apparently it's not finished with me yet." The phone buzzed again. "The people you think you failed to save? You didn't fail them. You were set up. Meet me in the hospital chapel in 1 hour. It's time you knew the truth." Aisha's hands trembled. "Set up? What truth?" Chen read the message over her shoulder. "Aisha, you have to go. You have to hear what he has to say. I can't relive that day. Maybe you won't have to. Maybe you'll finally understand it. 1 hour, the chapel, the truth about Mogadishu." Aisha looked at Chen, saw certainty in his eyes. "Will you cover my patience?" "Go," he said simply. "Find out who you really are, all of it." The hospital chapel was quiet, empty, except for Sergeant Hayes sitting in the front pew. He looked stronger. The color returned to his face, but his expression was grave. "Aisha," he said when she entered, "thank you for coming." "What truth, Marcus? What are you talking about?" She sat beside him, her voice tight. "Those people died because I made wrong choices, because I wasn't fast enough, skilled enough." "No." Hayes turned to face her. "Those people died because you were betrayed by your own command structure." Aisha felt the world shift. What? The Mogadishu mission was compromised from the start. Intelligence knew the marketplace was going to be hit. They knew when, they knew how. And they sent you anyway. That's impossible. Why would? Because you were getting too good, too decorated, too visible. A black woman surgeon outperforming everyone, earning more commendations than officers with twice your experience. Hayes's voice was bitter. "Some people decided you needed to be humbled." Aisha stared at him. "You're saying my own command set me up to fail?" "I'm saying they put you in an impossible situation, knowing you'd blame yourself when people died. They wanted to break your confidence, make you question your abilities." Hayes pulled out a folder, classified documents. "Took me 3 years to get clearance to show you these." Aisha opened the folder, read the mission briefings, the intelligence reports that were never shared with her, the advanced warnings about the marketplace bombing that never reached her field hospital. "My God," she whispered. "They knew. They all knew. You had 45 minutes to save 52 people with supplies for maybe 25. You performed miracles that day, Aisha. You saved 49 lives with resources that should have saved maybe 24. Hayes's voice was firm. "Those 3 people who died, they were already in critical condition when they reached you. But you kept working anyway because that's who you are." Aisha felt tears she'd held back for 3 years. "But I could have. You could have done nothing different, nothing better, nothing more than you did." Hayes took her hands. "Aisha, you're not just a good surgeon. You're the best combat surgeon the Army ever produced. And they broke you because they were afraid of how good you were, afraid of what it meant that a black woman was showing everyone up. The folder contained more documents, commendations that were never processed, recommendations for promotion that were buried, evidence of a systematic effort to undermine her career. Why are you showing me this now? Because I need you to understand something. What you did today, saving my life, that's who you really are, not the broken surgeon who blames herself for impossible choices. You're Dr. Aisha Williams, who saves lives others can't save." Aisha looked at the evidence at 3 years of guilt based on lies and manipulation. "I don't know if I can go back to surgery," she said quietly. "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to stop punishing yourself for crimes you didn't commit." Hayes stood. "But I will say this. The world needs surgeons like you. Patients need doctors who can do the impossible. And hiding that gift because some cowards were threatened by your excellence, that's not justice, Aisha. That's just another tragedy." He left her alone in the chapel with the truth she'd never known and a choice she'd never expected to face. Aisha Williams, nurse, had been safe, quiet, hidden. Dr. Aisha Williams had been extraordinary and dangerous to people who couldn't accept that. The question was, which person would she choose to be? Aisha found Dr. Chen in his office 2 hours later, the folder of classified documents still in her hands. "I read your message," he said without looking up. "The truth about Mogadishu. How are you processing it?" "I don't know yet. Aisha sat across from his desk. 3 years of guilt based on lies. 3 years of hiding from who I was because I thought I was a failure. And now I know I was set up. That those people died not because I wasn't good enough, but because people were afraid I was too good. Because I didn't fit their image of what a surgeon should look like. Aisha opened the folder. Did you know that surgeons with my background often face systematic discrimination? Higher standards, more scrutiny, less support? I knew it existed. I didn't know it had happened to you. Neither did I. Not consciously, but apparently some people did. And they decided it was a problem that needed solving. Aisha's voice carried an edge she'd buried for 3 years. They wanted to break me, and they succeeded. Chen leaned forward. But you're not broken now. No, Aisha said slowly. I'm angry. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not guilty. I'm furious. Good. Anger is better than guilt. Anger drives action. Aisha stood, walked to the window overlooking the surgical wing. Dr. Chen, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Always. This hospital, do you have the resources for a specialized trauma program? Advanced combat casualty care for military personnel and high-risk civilian cases? Chen sat back. Are you talking about coming back to surgery? I'm talking about doing what I was trained to do, what I'm better at than almost anyone in the country. Aisha turned to face him. Those techniques I used on Hayes, that's barely 10% of what I know. Combat medicine, advanced trauma surgery, emergency procedures that could save lives. Civilian hospitals lose every day. You want to establish a military trauma center here? I want to stop hiding. I want to use my skills where they matter. And I want to make sure that what happened to me, the sabotage, the cover-up, the systematic undermining of qualified doctors, doesn't happen to anyone else. Chen was quiet for a moment. The board would need to approve a new program. We'd need additional resources, specialized equipment. I have contacts, military medical suppliers, Department of Defense grants, Army medical liaison. Aisha's voice grew stronger with each word. Dr. Chen, I can bring expertise to this hospital that money can't buy, experience that medical schools can't teach, techniques that could revolutionize how we handle trauma cases, and you'd be willing to lead this program. Aisha thought about Sergeant Hayes, about the 51 lives she'd saved in combat, about the 3 people she'd blamed herself for losing. I'd be willing to be who I was always meant to be. Dr. Aisha Williams, combat trauma surgeon, not hiding anymore, not apologizing for being good at what I do, not letting anyone make me feel like I don't belong. Chen smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Dr. Williams, how soon can you put together a proposal? Give me 72 hours. Done. He stood, extended his hand. Welcome back to surgery, Dr. Williams. This hospital just got a lot more interesting. Aisha shook his hand, felt the familiar weight of surgical responsibility, the excitement of impossible challenges. For 3 years, she'd been Nurse Williams, safe, quiet, invisible. But Dr. Aisha Williams was back, and she had work to do. 3 weeks later, Aisha stood in her new office, watching through the window as the first official patient of the Advanced Combat Trauma Center was wheeled into OR-1. Army Specialist Davis, IED injuries from Afghanistan, fragmentation pattern she recognized immediately. Dr. Chen would assist, but Aisha would lead. The first surgery of her new position as Director of Combat Trauma Medicine, Dr. Williams. Her new assistant, Major Keisha Patterson, Army Medical Liaison, appeared in the doorway. Patient is prepped. Team is ready. Thank you, Keisha. Aisha straightened her white coat, the first time she'd worn one in 3 years. Her name was embroidered clearly. Dr. Aisha Williams, MD, Director, Combat Trauma Center. Doctor, Keisha hesitated. I wanted you to know. Word is spreading through military medical channels about what you're doing. Here. Combat surgeons who thought they were alone, who thought no one understood what they'd been through. They're asking for transfers, wanting to work with someone who gets it, especially the women, especially the black and brown doctors who felt like they had to be twice as good to get half the credit. Aisha nodded. Good. This program isn't just about saving lives, it's about supporting the people who save lives, making sure doctors like us don't get broken by the system we serve. Making sure we create the community we needed. Is that what happened to you? The system broke you? Aisha was quiet for a moment. The system tried to break me, but it turns out I'm harder to break than they thought. She headed toward the OR, where Specialist Davis waited, where her team of military-experienced medical professionals was ready to do the impossible. Sergeant Hayes appeared in the hallway, walking slowly but steadily, fully recovered from his surgery. "Dr. Williams," he said, falling into step beside her. "How does it feel? Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Any regrets about leaving nursing behind?" Aisha thought about it. Nursing taught me compassion. It reminded me that healing isn't just about technical skill. It's about caring for people when they're most vulnerable. She paused. "I'll be a better surgeon because I was a nurse." And the guilt about Mogadishu? Gone, replaced by determination to make sure other military medical personnel don't get sacrificed for politics or prejudice. Aisha smiled grimly. The people who tried to break me, they created something they never expected. A surgeon who's not just skilled, but angry enough to fight back. They reached the OR doors. Hayes stopped. "Aisha, when I said they didn't know who you were, I wasn't just talking about Dr. Chen. I know. You were talking about me too. I didn't know who I was." Aisha looked through the window, at her patient, at her team, at the life she was about to save. "But I do now." She entered the OR where Specialist Davis waited, where another impossible surgery needed someone who specialized in the impossible. "Scalpel," Dr. Aisha Williams said, her voice steady, confident. "Home." For 3 years, she'd hidden from who she was. But Dr. Aisha Williams was done hiding, and the world was about to remember why they called her the best combat surgeon the Army ever produced. 6 months later, Aisha's program had saved 53 military personnel and 14 high-risk civilian cases. The Advanced Combat Trauma Center was being studied by hospitals nationwide, and Aisha had been asked to consult on military medical policy. She stood in her office reviewing cases when Dr. Chen knocked. "Aisha, there's someone here to see you. Says it's official Army business." A woman in Army uniform entered. "Colonel Dr. Tamara Johnson, Chief of Army Medical Operations, Dr. Williams." Colonel Johnson said, "I'm here about Mogadishu." Aisha's blood went cold. "Ma'am, the officers responsible for compromising your mission and sabotaging your career have been court-martialed. 4 were dismissed from service. 2 were sentenced to military prison." Johnson's expression was grim. "The Army owes you an apology, doctor, and an offer." "What kind of offer?" "Return to active duty, full reinstatement of rank, command of the Army's new Advanced Combat Medical Division." Johnson handed her official documents. "Your choice of assignment, your choice of staff, complete autonomy to develop combat medical protocols." Aisha looked at the papers, everything she'd lost being offered back. "And if I decline? Then you continue doing exactly what you're doing here, with full Army support, unlimited resources, and the gratitude of every service member whose life you've saved or will save." Aisha thought about her team, her patients, the program she'd built. "Colonel Johnson, I appreciate the offer, but I think I'm exactly where I need to be." Johnson smiled. "I hoped you'd say that. The Army needs advocates on the outside, doctor. People who will fight for military medical personnel from positions of civilian authority. Especially people like you, who understand what it's like to fight battles on and off the field." After Johnson left, Aisha returned to her patient rounds. Room 218 held her latest case, Lieutenant Jasmine Rivera, Army medic, who'd been told she was too emotional for surgery after losing a patient in Syria. "How are you feeling, Jasmine?" Aisha asked. "Better. Still guilty, but better." Rivera looked at her. "Dr. Williams, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think I'll ever be able to operate again without seeing that soldier I lost?" Aisha sat beside her bed. "Yes, but not because you'll forget him, because you'll carry him with you and let his memory make you a better surgeon. The patients we lose teach us as much as the ones we save." "Is that what you did after Mogadishu?" "After Mogadishu, I forgot who I was for 3 years. But that soldier you lost, honor his memory by becoming the surgeon who saves the next one and the one after that. And don't let anyone tell you that your compassion makes you weak. It makes you stronger." Rivera nodded. Thank you, doctor. Aisha left the room, headed to OR3, where another impossible case waited. Marine Corporal Anderson, the same injuries that had nearly killed Sergeant Hayes. But this time, she wasn't hiding who she was. This time, she was exactly who she was meant to be. Dr. Aisha Williams, combat trauma surgeon, the woman who turned her greatest failure into her greatest strength, who refused to let anyone's prejudice define her limits. And she was just getting started.